Hey there, Mythical Family folks. This is Dad Thulu. This is one of the videos I've been wanting to shoot for a little while. I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the hobbies I've had throughout my entire life. While I was growing up, there was a lot of stigma, social and media stigma, about confusion and misinformation with specifically Dungeons and Dragons, because that's the role-playing game most people know. It's pretty much considered to be the premier, the first, the father of role-playing games, and there's debate about that that's really not relevant to this video. But Dungeons and Dragons is what most folks know. It is part of a hobby that, in the general hobby, is called tabletop role-playing games, and I wanted to talk with you about them a little bit and about the stigma that comes with them that I thought was largely gone, but apparently it is still prevalent in some places and still pops up, which I'm a little surprised at, but I guess things don't really change all that much that quickly, right? To start with, though, what I want to do is explain what role-playing games are and discuss why I'm qualified to talk about this and what I think of some of these stigmas and where they come from. In general, what is a role-playing game? That's what a lot of folks are probably most curious about when they would look for a video like this. A role-playing game is essentially an interactive and collaborative storytelling process. There are books and rules and accessories and whatnot that go with it to enhance the experience, but at its core, it is a collaborative storytelling process in a setting with characters telling a story or that are part of a story. The point of a role-playing game is to engage the imagination and to allow people to explore a story. It's no different than writing a screenplay. Role-playing games are that same premise on a much larger scale and sometimes quite detailed and methodical scale, but it's the same premise. My experience role-playing started when I was really young. I started around 8, which was, we'll just go with a long time ago. And I started role-playing with my older cousins and some of my aunts and uncles, and I was hooked because I was young. It engaged my imagination, and it let me be part of a story. To me, it was like watching a movie that I was enjoying, but I got to play parts in the movie. I got to be Frodo with the ring. I got to be Legolas the archer. You know, I got to be the characters that are in these stories and take part and have my decisions impact the story. So it really engaged with me, and it's been a big part of my life since I was very young. When it comes to role-playing, it's sort of a natural thing for a lot of people. Anytime you've watched a movie or a television show or read a book or engaged in any kind of story, and you've thought for a moment, wow, they really should have done this. Or, if I were there, that wouldn't have happened because I would have done that. Or, man, it would have been so much cooler if they had done this or if they hadn't forgotten about that. When you personalize it that way, you're engaging in roleplay. You are putting yourself in the role of the story and thinking about how it would have been different if you were there. That's what these games are about. That's what we do when we play these role-playing games. So then, the next step is, what's involved in a tabletop role-playing game? We've got the premise, I've explained it, and to take it to the level of a tabletop role-playing game, there's structure, there's organization, and there are rules. And the rules are there to keep stories in a guideline so that it doesn't run away like when we used to play cops and robbers or superheroes or anything like that, and we're making things up on the fly. Well, there wasn't any real balance to that. Like, well, you can't get me because I run faster than the Flash. Or, well, I have a tank, so I run over your car. You know, all of that stuff, when it just spirals out of control and there's no constrictions, no structure, That's what the tabletop role-playing game does, is it puts structure to this for a consistent storytelling environment and a way to keep things even across the board. When you play a game like Dungeons and Dragons, you make a character. You can be several fantasy races. You can play a human, you can play a dwarf, you can play an elf, you can play people that are feline, you can play lizard people. There's lots of things that you can play in this fantasy realm, and you take the role of that character, and in order to compare things fairly, there's a structure. You have statistics, which are simply a rating for how fast your character is, how smart or how strong your character is, how quick they are, what do they know, what have they been trained in, do they know languages and are they able to speak to other people. It's a whole structured rule set that gives you the premise for the character that you are playing. You're going to play the dwarven warrior who is out for revenge because the orcs burned down their village and they need to get vengeance for their tribe. They can't come back until they do. There's some kind of backstory like that. Or you can play the hunter who was out hunting, and while he was out, something happened to his village and he came home and everybody was gone, and now you need to find out why. But you have these statistics and skills and abilities so that you can fairly compare them with everybody else playing the game. Are you stronger than the elf that's in the party? If you're stronger, is he faster? Is the human in the party smarter and able to figure things out, like traps and locks and maps? So there's a structure there for comparative analysis between everybody and skills and tasks that you need to accomplish. Sure, you know how to pick locks, but are you good enough to pick this one? You may be a very good archer, but can you make that really long-range shot? So the statistics and structure come from the rule books so that these things can be determined and the outcomes can reach some kind of result. Did you hit your shot? Did you miss your shot? Did you ruin the lock trying to get into the chest to get the treasure, or did you pop the lock? As I said before, it's a collaborative storytelling process, and what it involves is usually one person telling the story and everybody else as actors in the story. So one person will sit down and run the game, and they're usually called the Game Master. There are different titles. For Dungeons and Dragons, it's specifically the Dungeon Master. There is referee, game mother. There's all sorts of different names for the person playing that role, and it depends on the game system you're playing, but they perform the same function. They are the director of the movie, unfolding the story as it's happening to the characters in the movie. The characters in the movie are the other players at the table. They have made characters with fantastic races or fantastic abilities in a world set up by the Dungeon Master or the Game Master to react to a story and be involved in the plot. So the Orc Warrior, who is a big, strong orc, again, these are different races. These aren't people. This isn't an ethnicity thing. An orc is not a human being. An elf is not the same as a human, nor is it the same as a dwarf. These are different races in a fantastic make-believe world. But they are the characters for the story. They are the ones the tragedy is unfolding around. They are Frodo and Gimli and Legolas. These are the characters that the story is happening to and are interacting in the story. They have their character sheets, and as the story unfolds, they make decisions. They decide what to say. They decide where to go. They decide how they're going to try to impact the story and the events that are happening. How are they going to stop the bad thing? How are they going to steal the thing they need to steal? How are they going to get away from whatever they need to escape from? Whatever the conflict is in the story, because you do need conflict or it's not a story. How they're going to respond to that conflict is how you play the game within the structures, the structured rules spelled out in the game system that you're playing. That's essentially it. You're the actors, you're the players and the characters in the story, and one person is organizing everything that's happening to you and how the story unfolds and how the world is changing. And you sit together and you make memories and you play. It is basically a game of make-believe, made really complicated sometimes. but make-believe, with your friends, at a table, in a fantastic world that you get to be part of, rather than being stuck in the world you're in. I'll get into the other topics later and discuss some of the negative stigmas and whatnot that surround tabletop role-playing games, mostly Dungeons & Dragons, but the hobby in general. Until then, do us a favor and please like and subscribe. It does help us get better content out and continue doing this for the folks that are interested. So let us know if you like what we're doing. Give us feedback, give us comments. We love to hear it. And until then, take care of each other.